this morning. You ever have one of those days you're just tired? Every day. Had a big funeral at my other church on Friday. And I think the grief from my own life and from that is kind of catching up with me. So I had an extra cup of coffee. So who knows what's going to happen now. Welcome to worship. We got some announcements this morning.
Okay. I just want to let everybody know today is the last day to order Easter lilies. There are envelopes out in the mailbox.
I haven't told you.
Oh, okay.
Really quick, next week, it's getting close. Next week is Palm Sunday. And as usual, we do the Passion reading. And this year it's the Passion according to Luke. I did need a couple readers. There's some parts that have one line. There's some that have 2 or 3 lines. And then there's some that have a whole bunch of lines. So I'm looking for people who are willing and able to read. So come and find me when you can. Okay? Thanks.
First off, time is running out to buy those Easter breakfast tickets. Next week is the last time they're on sale, so make sure you get them because it's a great time. Make sure you do that. Also this afternoon there is open house for Divine Intervention. That's where we do the meals and that when they're open. It is from 2 till 4. So if you're, I'll put this back there, so if you're interested, finding a little bit more about it, what happens and things like that, meeting the people involved, there's a chance to do that. We also have this afternoon the collaborative between, I think, the Westmans, is that what, and St. Mark's Brass Band. They're doing a concert here this afternoon at 3 o'clock. And I guess there's a reception afterwards. It's also a very nice time. So if you have time in your schedule, come and enjoy some nice music. And also check out the display in the back Joe's been putting up about recycling and composting, especially with the Easter breakfast coming up. What can I compost? What just goes in the garbage? It's a good visual reminder so that Joe doesn't have to throw away good compostable food because somebody threw something in there that doesn't belong. I think that's it. All right.
Last Sunday for the 2x4 signing.
Oh, also last Sunday for the 2x4 signing. Anybody else? Okay.
It is also our last Lenten soup supper this Wednesday. And if you have not made it to a Lenten soup supper, you are missing out. We had, I think, 4 homemade soups last week. Homemade bread was really, really good. Feel free to come at 5 for a little gathering, a little Bible study. 6 o'clock is the soup supper, and 7 o'clock we have our Holden Evening Prayer worship service right in here.
Soul
through the narrow gate. For the gate is wide and the road is easy that leads to destruction, and there are many who take it. For the gate is narrow and the road is hard that leads to life, and there are few who find it. Beware of false prophets who come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly are ravenous wolves. You will know them by their fruits. And grapes gathered from thorns, are grapes gathered from thorns, or figs from thistles? In the same way, every good tree bears good fruit, but the bad tree bears bad fruit. A good tree cannot bear bad fruit, nor can a bad tree bear good fruit. Every tree that does not bear fruit is cut down and thrown into the fire. Thus you will know them by their fruits. Not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven, but only one who does the will of my Father in heaven. On that day, many will come and say to me, Lord, Lord, did we not prophesy in your name and cast out demons in your name and do many deeds of power in your name? Then I will declare to them, I never knew you. Go away from me, you evildoers. Everyone then who hears these words of mine and acts on them will be like a wise man who built his house on a rock. The rain fell, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat on that house, but it did not fall, because it had been founded on rock. And everyone who hears these words of mine and does not act on them will be like a foolish man who has built his house on the sand. The rain fell, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat against his house, and it fell. And great was its fall. Now when Jesus had finished saying these things, the crowds were astounded at his teaching, for he taught them as one having authority, not as their scribes. The gospel of our Lord.
Praise to you, O Christ.
We are confronted with a choice. If you were making a sales pitch, this would be the ask. This is the most important part. And Jesus is saying to his disciples and to his followers, you have to make a choice. Who are you going to follow? There are two paths. One is the easy path. They had a really good example of the easy path. Rome had been building superhighway roads that were safe to travel and easy. And Jesus compares these safe roads with the treacherous mountain roads that the disciples often traveled on between Galilee and Jerusalem. Jesus talks about two kinds of fruit, two kinds of trees, trees that bear good fruit and trees that bear bad fruit. Which kind of tree are you? How can people tell? Is the fruit you're producing good? And then Jesus talks about a house builder, a couple of them. One decides to build his house on the rock. The other builds it on the sand. You might be wondering, why would anyone build their house on sand? Anybody wonder that? It's easy. It's nice and flat. And if it's not quite the grade you want, you can shift the sand around. Rock, however, it takes a little bit more expertise, a little bit more hard work to try to get a rock that is level and flat. Almost never happens. Jesus is comparing these things and asking us, which foundation are we going to choose? When I first started doing youth ministry, I was 21 years old at a church in a little town in Oregon called Newberg. Part of my salary was my housing. It was a remodeled chicken coop on a farm. It was the original studio apartment. I had a shower and a lab, and I had a bed and a dining room table, and a little countertop with a sink, all in the span of a 9-foot by 11-foot building. I worked half-time at the church doing youth ministry. I made $300 a month. I couldn't tell you how rich I thought I was. It was really my first job ever that paid a regular salary besides my paper route as a kid. The other part of my salary was made up from working a construction job for a man in the church who had a construction company building homes. And at that time, I don't know if you remember, there was an earthquake in San Francisco, happened during one of the World Series games. And that year, people started selling their 3-bedroom ranch house in San Francisco and moving to Oregon. And for the money they got from their little 3-bedroom ranch, they could build a mansion, a McMansion. And my boss was into that. And so I learned how to frame houses working for him. And we framed this one house. It was absolutely stunning. It was 6 bedrooms with a big bonus room over the garage. And it had all of these dormers. I mean, the roof was just incredible. And it was fancy. All the bells and whistles, pretty exciting stuff. Only problem with this house was the guys who laid the foundation, it was a poured foundation, used bad concrete. The batch plant they got the concrete from, for whatever reason that particular day did not have enough Portland cement. And houses that were poured on that day, all of them were condemned. But not until everyone was living in them. The foundation of your house is important, needless to say. You can spend a lot of time making a really great looking house. But if the foundation isn't sound, you'll have to rebuild. Jesus is said at the end of his Sermon on the Mount that people were astonished because he spoke as one who had authority, not like the scribes, not like the teachers of the law. What was Jesus doing? In the Sermon on the Mount, he would say things like, well, you have heard it said, but I tell you. I mean, who does he think he is? Changing stuff. Updating things. There were those that day that were rejecting completely a law-oriented approach. And he said, I have not come to abolish the law, but to fulfill it. And there were those who looked back and wanted to keep the law exactly the way it was. And Jesus came and updated it. He added some new little tweaks to it. He actually made it more encompassing. And the people, they were amazed. Who is this that thinks they can do theology in real time, in real situations? There's a guy on social media named Dan McClellan. Lance told me he's been watching. And Dan McClellan is a self-proclaimed scholar of the Bible. And I do believe he is a scholar of the Bible. I think he has spent a great deal of time studying the culture and the history and the original languages. And he has a very good basis and background in that. that. And he's very good at criticizing everything that people say if it's not correct to the letter. I love listening to Dan and watching Dan McClellan. He is so smart. But I don't think that Dan McClellan knows Jesus. I remember my seminary class in systematic theology. I always sat in the back. I think I thought maybe I was too cool for systematic theology. And there was a guy sitting in the back with me. His name was Titus. He was from Africa. We would say Titus, but he called himself Titus. And Titus and I would sit, and Titus was a very faithful, strong person. And we were hearing a lecture about whether Jesus was 100% divine, or whether Jesus was 100% human, or how this all works. And Titus was getting agitated. And he stood up, because that's what you do in Africa when you have a question. You don't put your hand up, you stand up. And our teacher kind of stopped and said, yes. And he took an apple out of his pocket. And he threw it up in the air, and he caught it. And then he threw it up in the air, and he caught it. And just for good measure, he threw it up in the air, and he caught it. And the professor was getting a little bit annoyed. I think this was Titus's plan. And the professor said, is there something you wanted? And Titus held the apple and he said, Professor, do you know if this apple is sweet or sour? And the professor said, well, how could I know if it's sweet or sour? I haven't tasted it. And Titus said, and you have not tasted my Jesus either. It is not simply the results that we end up with at the end of the road we travel. It is the actual walking of the road. In our book that we've been studying, in our Bible study, there is a little summary of Jesus' Sermon on the Mount. I'm going to read a little section of it. Be among the lowly in spirit. Remain sensitive to pain and loss. Live in the power of gentleness. Hunger and thirst for true righteousness. Show mercy to everyone rather than harshness. Don't hide hypocrisy or duplicity in your heart. Work for peace. Be willing to joyfully suffer persecution and insult for doing what is right. Dare to be a nonconformist by believing differently. Like salt and light in the world, demonstrate your differentness through works of generosity and beauty. Reject both mindless conformity to tradition and rebellious rejection of it. Instead, discern the true intent of tradition and pursue that intent into new ways. Never hate, hold grudges, or indulge in anger, but instead aim to be the first to reach a hand out in reconciliation. Avoid word inflation when making vows. Instead, practice clear, straight speech. So simple words like yes and no
retaining their full value. Reject revenge. Instead, pursue creative and nonviolent ways to overcome the wrongs done to you. Love your enemies as well as your friends, and so imitate God's big, generous heart for all creatures. Cultivate a hidden life of goodness by giving to the poor, praying and fasting secretly. Pray in secret through the four movements of your heart. Don't let greed cloud your outlook on life, but store up wealth by investing in a growing portfolio of generosity and kindness. Be especially vigilant about money becoming your slave master. Don't let anxiety ruin your life, but instead, trust yourself to God's gracious and parental care, and seek foremost to build the just and generous society that will fulfill God's best dreams for humanity. Don't develop a sharp eye for the faults and failures of others. Don't push on people treasures that they are not ready or can't yet appreciate the value of. Do unto others as you would have them do to you.
The Sermon on the Mount from Jesus invites us to make a choice, to walk the difficult path together, or to walk the easy path. The hard path leads to life, not just in the end, but on the path. A path of togetherness. A path of love and generosity.